day, good afternoon, folks, or good day, folks, or good evening to you in Israel. Here we are again with another lesson in Ethics of the Fathers. That's Pirkei Avos with Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. I'm so enjoying this class, and he has a doozy for us today. One that I firmly believe wisdom would listen closely to and begin to appropriate. And I think it's going to be very useful to all you out there. And I hope that you're enjoying it. So without any further ado, I'm so thankful that he takes the time out of his busy schedule to share with us. So Rabbi Kaufman, welcome. And how are you today? And I'm looking forward to this lesson because I know I need it more than most.
Doing great. It's going to be a lot of fun. If there are any women out there, just turn me off because you're going to hate it. I wouldn't say that. I was just kidding. But we'll see. We'll see where we go. Last week we spoke about having your home, open up your home to the rabbis and thirstily drinking their Torah. And we spoke a lot of different examples, a lot of good stories, etc. So comes on the Mishna. We're in the 5th Mishnah, first chapter. Comes along Yossi ben Yochanan. Yossi, the son of Yochanan, says he's the leader of Jerusalem. Remember, from now on, you're going to have pairs that are getting it from the previous pairs we mentioned last week. And he says, let your house be open wide. Treat the poor as members of your household. Do not converse excessively with a woman. They said this about one's wife. Surely it applies to another's wife. Right? Now, this we're going to need clarification. So you're going to ask the $1 million question. What, I can't speak to my wife? All right, I understand someone else's wife. Right? So we're going to have to see how this works. Right? Consequently, sages say anyone who converses excessively with a woman causes evil to himself, neglects Torah study, and eventually inherit Gehenna, or what we'll call in the vernacular hell. Well, I spoke to my wife, I had a conversation, maybe had a few conversations, whatever it is, it's going to come back to bite me. I'm going to get fried. I'm going to neglect Torah, right? I'm going to be a bum. I'm not going to learn Torah, God forbid. It's going to take me away from that, and I'm going to fry in hell forever. Boy, is this comforting. Aren't you glad you came this early morning, afternoon, wherever you may be, and you're going to say, wow, Rabbi said I can't talk to my wife. Oh, this is going to be a good one. This is definitely going to be a good one. But we're going to say the best for last. So we'll take the beginning first. Right? What does it mean to have your house open wide? So we should be like Avram Avinu. Now, Avram Avinu had a tent, and his tent had 4 entrances. Why 4 entrances? You say, why? Isn't one entrance enough? Why do you have 4 entrances? So guests wouldn't have to look for the entrance, right? People came, people went, right? He fed people, took care of them, etc. So he had all these entrances, so it wouldn't be a problem. My Rebbe once said, he said, I only have 1 door. He said, Avram Avinu had 4. People would come in and come out. It would be like a major, like a public thoroughfare. So my Rebbe would say, I only have 1 door, but I think my 1 door is compared to his 4. People coming, going, asking questions, this, that, right? So that's one explanation, right? You're having guests. A person enjoys having guests. You want to help people, right? Second explanation is that your house should be open for everybody, rich people, poor people, anybody you can help monetarily, right? According to your means, right? You give them a meal, whatever, or even giving advice, right? You can have them come in, and if you have the ability to give good advice to help someone, especially in their time of need, that's a tremendous thing. Now, it's interesting. It says that the house should be open wide, and you should treat the poor as members of your own household. Now, a poor person comes in, they may have their own household, but they're poor, right? They don't have very much. So what happens? You invite them in. You give them a meal. You speak to them. You try and help them as much as possible. You bring them in so they are not embarrassed, right? They have an opportunity. They have somewhere to go, Now again, if they're, if they have, if they have mental issues, other things. So, all right, so you got, you may have to be careful, right? You may have to be careful who you're gonna take in. Nonetheless, right? Nonetheless, there are stories. There are stories of great rabbis whose homes were open to the poor, gave them places to sleep, and they said, this is like your house. We want you to use this house like your own. They gave them free reign. So giving someone free reign, okay, that could go that could go in different ways, right? Someone could obviously either overstay their welcome, or take things or do things they may not, they shouldn't do, or whatever. But the point is that this poor person's not going to be embarrassed, right? He's got a place to come. He's got a place to stay. He's got an ear that someone's going to listen to him, right? He's gonna pat him on the back. He's gonna make him feel like $1,000,000. Aye, but you look at his situation. You see the rags that he wears. You see the terrible things that he's going through. In all the difficulty. You give him a warm meal, pat him on the back. You make him feel like $1,000,000. So you say, well, he only forgets that temporarily. That could be true, right? But when someone opens their house, they open their heart, right? That goes a long way. It goes a long way, because everybody, no matter who they are, they always want to feel like they're doing something. We're not looking for honor. We'll see that in Pirkei Avos also. We're not looking for honor, right? But you have to have a certain level of self-esteem. So someone boosts you up, there could be other people, maybe like me, the Energizer Bunny, the rah-rah person, giving people chizuk and strength and making them feel like $1,000,000 because they have the ability, to grow and to do things. And, even if life is hard, it doesn't matter. But imagine someone who's down on their luck, right? Spouse passed away, the kids are far away, they don't have very much, and they come to you for comfort. Right? It's a tremendous thing. I remember, many years ago when, pretty much when I was already religious, I spent a lot of time, a lot of Shabbases and a lot of festivals by a certain family, and they welcomed me in like, I was absolute family. So I was almost similar age, or a little bit older than their oldest. But I was there so much. Now a lot of their kids live here in Israel. So we've been in contact, etc. So it's a tremendous thing. So I would go there, be like, not only you got a place to go, but you're like one of the family, right? So it doesn't matter like what you were going through, whatever. This is, these are the people who open their hearts. They open their doors, right? Or doors, whatever, and it made me feel like part of the family. Now, if you're always looking for a place for Shabbos, as a single person or whatever, not always easy to find, and this and that. I always had a place to go if I wanted to go, and like I said, they open their doors, they open their hearts. It was an unbelievable thing. So, so that's what it is that a person opens their home, and it's like you have free reign. Okay, there are limits. There are definitely boundaries. I don't think there's any question about that. It's not like you say, hey, what's in the fridge? Hey, chicken, look at that. It's like, you got to be smart also. But at the same time, someone welcomes you in. It's not just you have a place to stay. Not just you have a bed to sleep in, or a hot meal or whatever. But, people, they can help you. They can give advice if they're able to, or whatever. So that's the whole thing, right? Because someone can't do that with their family, right? Certainly in my case, certainly never could do that, right? So you have someone you can talk to. Someone understands, right, where you're coming from. That's that's a tremendous thing. Now, there's another explanation that a person can help a poor person at a much higher level, right? Now, what's the higher level? The higher level is when they don't even feel it. This is why it says you have an open house so people don't have to wait for the owner to open the door for them. Because what's the highest level of charity? that a person can give to someone else when the other person doesn't know where it comes from. In other words, he has no clue it came from you, right? Because if a person gives it to them, they feel indebted to you, right?
True.
So, but if you give someone, let's say you gave someone money, say here, give it to this person or whatever, just don't say it came from me. That's the highest level because they don't know, right? You're not getting honor for it. There's no glory, right? No one's putting your plaque somewhere or whatever. Maybe on a telephone pole or something, for a free meal, good meal, come to, whatever. But in general, what's the point? The point is they don't know where it comes from. If they don't know where it comes from, that means you're not going to get credit for it. I mean, you will upstairs, but no one's there. They're not patting you on the back saying, "Oh, you don't understand how much you helped me." They have no idea where it came from, right? And the person you told them, hopefully in confidence, you tell them, I don't want them to know, right, where it came from. Okay, again, pleasure to be back here. We spoke before I fried your system that how can a person help a poor person at the highest level, right? The highest level is where they don't feel it, right? In other words, they are getting help and they don't know where it comes from, right? So, if a person does that, you're not getting any honor, there's no glory, right? And you told the person who you're giving it to, say, okay, give this to Joe, give it to John, give it to whoever, and you're not going to get a pat in the back. You're not going to get any glory. You're not going to get a plaque, right? You're doing it because you want to do it for the sake of the mitzvah, and that's the highest level because they don't know where it comes from. So this is why it says that you have an open house, so people don't have to wait for the owner to open the door. They can just come in, right? They can come whenever they want. So we mentioned before, there are great rabbis that just had an open door policy. Come in, check out, whatever. Their homes were open, right? To whoever wanted to be there, right? Comes along the Medrash, right? The Medrash tells us, Vayikra Rabbah, or chapter 34 in the book of Leviticus, right? It's a Medrash on the book of Leviticus. It says the more the owner of the house does for the poor person, because you're helping them out, you're giving them a meal, you're giving them a good word, you're helping them along in whatever they're going through. Poor person does more for the owner. Why? Because he's giving you the opportunity to have him as a guest, right? This is why the mitzvah of giving charity saves people from going to hell, because they're giving of themselves to help others. Comes along one of the great Romans. Talmud tells us Tornus Rufus, right? Tornus Rufus comes to Rabbi Akiva, and he says to Rabbi Akiva, if your God is so powerful and he can do anything, why do there poor people? Why are there poor Jews? Right? It's a legitimate question from a non-Jewish Roman, right? Why is that? If your God can do anything, why can't he support the poor? So what did Rabbi Akiva say? So Rabbi Akiva said exactly what we say over here. He says that he's giving them the opportunity for Olam Haba. He's giving them the opportunity for the next world. Why? Someone has money. What do they want to do? They want to keep it in their pocket. And you're trying to take it out of their pocket, right? You know what? You want to help someone else? Then get a better job, right? What do I care what happened to you? I made my money, big deal, right? But how does that help you? Because when you give money and you're giving of yourself, you don't have to give that. I mean, technically, according to the Torah, you do, right? You have to give at least 10% after taxes, okay, right? But you're helping the other person, right? You are giving of yourself. When you give of yourself, you realize the money you've received by God is like collateral. What we call a pikadon. It's collateral, right? Because who gave it to you, right? There's a famous story I always use, right? If you go through the book Duties of the Heart and Shar B'Tachon, in the gate of faith in God, talks about parnasa, right? About livelihood. So the Chofetz Levavo says, right? It says over there, person makes a living. Don't think what you're doing. Don't think what you're doing is doing it. Meaning, you have to put your best foot forward to put bread on the table. But in the end of the day, you could have 100 IQ, and God says, you know what? I want you to have a lot of money, right? So God's going to take care of you. So Chofetz Levavo says God either gives you brains or brawn. If you have brawn and you don't have too much brains, so you be a forklift driver. You do physical labor, but he gives you the opportunity to make a living. If you have brains, you can make a living other ways, right? Whatever it is. But he says it's not based on your own actions. I'll give an example. Very relevant example. In Jerusalem, there's a Jewish marketplace, right? Tomatoes, they have peaches, plums, all kinds of fruits, vegetables, all kinds of things, right? And everyone's yelling and screaming. Anyone who's ever been there, it's an unbelievable experience. You know, this guy's saying, my cucumbers are number one, my tomatoes are number one, and they're dressing it up in this and that and whatever. Now, the reality is, where are they getting the fruits and vegetables from? Right? They're getting the fruits and vegetables more or less from the same place. It's not like, oh, this guy goes from here, this guy goes there, this guy's somewhere else. They're all getting it more or less from the same place. If they're getting it from the same place, why does one person make more money than the other? So you tell me it's advertising, it's marketing, it's screaming, right? It's screaming, right? So Chofetz Levavo says, just want to make sure your speakers work. So Chofetz Levavo says it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with if God wants him to have money or not have money, or to struggle. And he wants his prayers, right? He wants him to pray better, to pray harder. Still, you have to put your best foot forward, true. But is that a guarantee I'm going to be successful? No. Right? I know some people, lawyers, right? Some of them made, good money. Other people didn't. So again, you'll tell me it's marketing. You'll tell me it's the whole package. It's bedside manner. It's all these different things, right? Except the main thing. And what's the main thing? The main thing is because God didn't bless them.
Right.
Because all things being equal, if their advertising is good, their persona is good, their writing material is good, why shouldn't they make good money? They should be able to make good money unless they transgress Kaufman's 615th commandment of don't be stupid, right? If they do that, okay, right? They do it to themselves. But all things being equal, there's no reason why that should happen. Right? So the mitzvah of giving charity over here, right? If a person has the ability to give, God is saving them from suffering in the next world. Right? Because I saw it brought down somewhere, I don't remember where, but I saw it brought down somewhere that 1 in 1,000 rich people go to paradise. Go into Gan Eden.
1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000. Right?
Wow.
Now, why is it 1 in 1,000? Because people who have money don't use it for the right things. Right? Imagine, I'll give an example. Imagine somebody inherited a lot of money. His last name just happens to be Rockefeller Steen. Right? He inherited a lot of money. Get that, Steen, Rockefeller? Anyway, he's part of the Rockefeller family. Inherited all this money. Right? He doesn't need to work. He's got people to look after it. They'll invest it, never touch the principal. Good. He's got millions. Right? What does the Mishna Pirkei Avos say? You have 100, you want 200. You have 200, you want 400. So what's he going to do? He's going to take his millions and try and make billions. Okay. But how many people in the Jewish world, in the Orthodox world, that have enough money to live on, that have plenty of money to live on, are sitting and learning full time? Very few. Now, I know somebody owns hotels, right? Still owns hotels, multi-millionaire. And he learned for many, many years sitting and learning. And he told me that he's so much into the business, he can't do it anymore. It's just too much a part of it. So thank God I was never into that. I mean, I had money and someone else watching it, okay. Right? So I sat and learned, helped others, whatever. So I'm not tooting my own horn and bragging and say, oh, look what I did. But why wouldn't other people do it if they have enough money to live on? Because they get sucked in. They get totally sucked in. That business mentality, and I was involved in business a little bit with real estate, but that business mentality, it's like, it just drives you. It totally drives you. So therefore, if a person has money, right, if a person has money, God gives you a golden opportunity. What's the golden opportunity? If God gave you a gift, you help others. That's why I gave it to you. It's a test. Right?
Responsibility.
Poverty is also a test. It's also a test. So the reality is, you don't have what to pay for things and you struggle. So in a lot of ways, that's harder, right? It's harder because you have no idea where things are going to come from. You have to lean on God 100% more because you have no one else to turn to. If you got millions in the bank, you're not really worried about it, right? But why is it? Why is the test? Why is the test of wealth so much more difficult? Because now you have a greater responsibility, and if you have a greater responsibility, and you're helping save the whales, you're helping who knows what that you're not going to even get credit for giving charity. God says, why do I give you the money? Why did I give you all this money? I know somebody. Tell a very scary story. I know somebody very, very wealthy, and they helped raise more than $100 million, about $130 million, someone told me, to give to X charity. It was a non-Jewish charity. Now, if they get the benefit of the doubt that it went to good things and it helped poor people, they'll get some credit. They'll get some credit for charity, right? The problem is they could have helped. They could have helped widows, Jewish widows. They could have helped. They could have helped needy brides. They could have helped yeshivas. They could have helped girls' schools. They could have helped. You're going to say, why do they have to help their own? Well, that's what we do. All Jews are interspersed, right? We're all interconnected, right? So we help our own first, right? If a person had an opportunity to help somebody or help their brother, who are you going to help first? Family. Family comes first. So that being the case, imagine, and this person was eulogized like you can't imagine. Thousands of people at this funeral. And one of the things to get eulogized for is look at all the money they helped raise for this non-Jewish charity. Now, if you know anything about what happens when a person dies, you got to watch. You got to watch my video on Tanakh talk about that. Spoke about that, but the soul hovers around where it knows, right before it gets judged. Right, it'll go to its house, it goes to where it grew up, whatever, and the soul can be there at the funeral itself. So imagine now the soul knows absolute truth. Right, for the soul, it's clear what absolute truth is, and they're getting eulogized as one big fat lie. And the person eulogizes, oh, look at all the charity. They helped raise more than $100 million to save Flipper. You went to help save Flipper. That soul is going to go out of its mind. That soul's going to be yelling and screaming. No one can hear it. And the soul's going to say, shut up, you're killing me. You are destroying me. So why did God give them that money? Why did they help them? God helped them raise all that money? Because he wanted to see what they were going to do with it. He wanted to see if they're going to be able to help others in the right way or not. And in the end, what happened? God said, okay, you're right. It was a waste. And they used it to help save Flipper. What's going to happen to them? So that's what part of hell is part of the embarrassment. Because now they hear it. They hear all the accolades. And it's all false. They say, look at all that money. Look what you could have done to help your own community. And you were too busy save the whales. So if a person's given money and he's got the opportunity to help others, you help the right people. You don't go help saving Flipper. Let someone else save Flipper. Right? You got an obligation to your people, to the poor of your people. Right? To help raise the standard of Torah. Right? To help schools become stronger. that's going to save you from hell because God's given you the opportunity to help others. So we learn in Shulchan Aruch, right, code of Jewish law, that a person has to give charity, and when you give charity and someone knocks on your door, even if 5 people come one after the other, right, they knock on your door, you have to give whatever you can give, but you have to give it with a smile. Why do you have to give it with a smile? Because you want to help somebody, even if you can't give them that much. You got to feel the pain, right? Because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to go knock on someone's door for help. A person's got to be totally desperate to do that. So that being the case, what happens, right? That someone's going to come, and they keep knocking on the door, one after another, and you give money, whatever it is, even if it's a nice amount, with a sour face. With a sour puss face, you lose the merit. Now again, let's say persons of means, and there are people coming Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, people knock on the door, make appointments, this, that. If you have the opportunity to give, you don't want to be on the other side. You definitely don't want to be on the other side that has to receive. So if someone's knocking on your door and you can only give a certain amount, it doesn't matter. Right? If you have the means to give, you give with an open heart. Because if you don't give with an open heart, God could take it away. He said, what do I give you the money for? So if you read the book of Ruth, the beginning of the book of Ruth, there's a famine. Right? There's a famine at the beginning of the book of Ruth. Elimelech has a lot of money. People keep barging on his door. There's a famine. He can't take it anymore, and he leaves. And he goes to Moab. What happens when he goes to Moab? He dies. God takes him out of this world. Why? The commentaries explain there was a famine. He had an obligation to help his people. Okay, they might have been driving him batty. We need food. We need money. We need food. We can't live. You have the opportunity to help. What did you do? You shirked your responsibility. You left. You left when people needed you. God says, but I gave you this money. I gave you this ability to help others. Right? He came from a noble family. It wasn't just, Joe Schmo over here. Right? He came from an unbelievable family. Goes to Moab. He dies. His 2 sons marry Moabite women. What happens to them? They also die. You don't mess. If God gave you plenty, He gave you plenty to help others. If you keep it for yourself, you give it over the sourpuss face, and you're upset people keep bothering you and knocking on your door and all that, give with a happy face. Because at the end of the day, the money is just it's a picadon. God gives you like it's collateral. Can God take it away? He can take it away. If you don't use it properly, He says, okay, in my language, you love this, chump don't want it, chump don't get it. You won't be able to enjoy it. And that'll be it. So God gives us the ability to help others. And if you have, you give as much as you can give. Right? You can give up to 20% after taxes. You can't give more than that, right? Because then, might have, things may go down or whatever, and you don't want to come on to the help of others. Now, if a person, as one of the commentaries says, if a person gives a lot of money to this poor person, and he gives it with a sour face, they transgress the prohibition of not showing evil in their heart. In other words, they could give with a smile, but in their heart they're livid because they just keep bothering him. Banging on his door. It's fine. I'll give because I have to give. But in their heart, it's burning them. So one of the commentaries says, even if they give a lot of money, even if they give it with a smile, they transgress of not showing evil in their heart. All right, wow. So my Rebbe, yeah, go ahead.
Wow, all I can do is relate. Sometimes we do feel that we're robbed or taken advantage of, and I guess having that right heart attitude when we are giving. I mean, I don't know. Like, let's say a child. I have one daughter that I gave and gave and gave and give so much to the point where I probably spoiled and enabled too much, and I say, oh, so now I have to pull back, and I shake my head, and I'm like, how do you stop? Is it having a wrong attitude if you're viewing a situation where you might be enabling negative, like to
No,
pull
so
back
that's something
giving?
else. That's something else. If you're enabling somebody who's going to be spoiled, and they're just going to quote unquote use you, for that, and not whether they are appreciative, not appreciative. There's dependency. So a person certainly has to be careful. Careful of that. Even if a person has, and they have a lot, and they give and give. They have to realize what the value is. If they don't realize what the value of money is, then that's definitely a problem. My high school yearbook. So I had to write like a senior statement, right? So what was my senior statement after 12 years of study? It's not what you know, it's who you know, and money is only a medium of exchange. That's what I learned. That's what I learned after 12 years. In any case, my Rebbe should be well heard from the Rebbe of Chabin. The Rebbe of Chabin, a great rabbinic scholar, last generation, says that there's a question: can you force somebody to give charity? Right? Charity should come from within. It should come from a desire from within. Right? There's a question. Someone's got money. Can you force him? Right? So one of the earlier commentators says that a person gets merit for speaking with somebody, even if you don't have money to give, because you ease their burden. Right? You ease their burden. They talk about it, this, that. If the person only gives because they're forced to, they don't really want to give, they're not able to ease the burden through words. Why? Because they feel they've been, like you said, they've been used. Just because you have money doesn't mean I can force you to give it. Right? Therefore, they're not going to merit the blessing of giving charity that the Torah speaks from. Right? And there are a number of things that if a person's forced into doing something, question is, do they fulfill their obligation, or not? If someone force fed somebody matzah on Passover, right? Just as a example, right? They force fed him. He didn't want to eat the matzah. It was Passover. You force fed him the matzah. Eat the matzah, right? Swallows the matzah, whatever. Did he fulfill his obligation? Because normally we say mitzvahs do not need intention. So over here, what was my intention? He ate matzah. He didn't want the matzah, but you forced him, right? So there's a question, right? Because technically speaking, he ate the matzah. If he ate the matzah, he fulfilled his obligation. Even, seemingly, he can't say, well, I have negative intention. Say, I'm not fulfilling my obligation. I mean, you could say that, but you're eating the matzah. It's like a contradiction in terms, right? In any case, you force somebody to do something, right? It's a problem. It's a problem when it comes to charity. Another explanation is it's better not to have servants do work for you, but rather have poor people do the work. Why should I have poor people work for me? So you can give them a living. You can give them a livelihood. Right? Better to take them than other people. And today, people are not necessarily so stringent, in the Jewish world to do business with someone that's Torah observant. Right? So we would say you want to support, religious Jews, support their businesses so they can make, they can make a living. Famous story with the Chazon Ish, great rabbi of the last generation of Avram Yeshaya Karlitz, Zecher Tzadik Levracha. May his name be blessed. He would travel far from his house when he needed medicine to go specifically to a pharmacy if someone was Torah observant. Now you have to understand the Chazon Ish was not a very strong individual. So for him to travel 10 minutes out of his way, 15 minutes out of his way, right, it's significant. And that's why. Comes on the Chofetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan HaKoyen, right? Famous Chofetz Chaim says sometimes the owner of the house wants to invite guests, and the wife answers, we don't really have much to give. Really not that much food, so I still have an obligation. So the Mishnah says the guest should be like the one that live in your house. So even if you don't have that much, you give to them as well. And I have to understand, in the time of the Chofetz Chaim, there was abject poverty. People didn't have very much at all. Lucky had any food at all. So to have an open house, to have people come in, but you yourself don't have, right? You're going to say, well, why do I have to do that? Why should I share what I don't have, right? That's the question. I shouldn't have to share what I don't have, right? But in the end, you should treat a guest like someone in your house. Well, we don't have, so you don't have, but you bring them in again, and you help them, whether it's easy, being able to ease the burden, whether it's, trying to feed them, or whatever the case is, you're giving them the ability to feel like $1,000,000, right? And again, it doesn't mean you have to have a 4-course meal, right? There are different ways to do it. There's a difference of opinion between Abraham and Job, right? What's the difference between Abraham and Job? Job served people, and he did, he also had guests. He also had lots of guests. But the difference is he served people what he wanted to eat. He served them his favorites. Avram served them exactly what they wanted. He would ask, okay, what can I get you? He said, I want a tongue sandwich, okay? Sorry, go get the bowl. Let's kill the bowl, take out the tongue, we'll make the tongue, mustard, what do you want with it? He made what they want. Right? So the person will say, I'm not gonna put out the owner. Right? Why should I put out the owner? I'll take whatever he gives. But if the owner says, well, what can I get you? That person will feel uncomfortable. Right? But at the end of the day, if the owner has that in mind, and he says whatever he wants, I mean within reason, obviously, whatever the person wants, I will grant them to much higher level. Much higher level, because if you serve them what you want, well, where's the? I mean, okay, you get the mitzvah, of having guests, right? But there's a whole nother dimension. That other dimension is, okay, I wouldn't have necessarily, made this, but that's what you want, I'll take care of it. At a much higher level. Much higher level. So that's the first part of the Mishnah about having people as guests and treating the poorest members of your household. Now we get to a little bit stuff. To the good stuff. To the good stuff. What does it mean? What does it mean not to converse excessively with a woman? Now, the novelty over here is, who's it talking about? Right? It says it's even about his own wife. That's a huge novelty. Why can't I talk to my wife? Right? If it's speaking about your wife, for sure, it's talking about another wife. Someone else's wife. So here the Mishnah says, it uses an extra hey. It says ha isha, the woman. Why doesn't it just say isha? Right? Why doesn't it just say, don't converse excessively, with a woman, or with the, instead of the woman, right? What's the difference? So here it's talking about a person's wife. Others say it's talking about his wife when she's a nida, right? When she gets her period, so I have to talk to her. Can't look at her like an object. Why? We'll speak more about that. Because if a person speaks excessively with her, what's going to be? He's going to have desire. If he's got desire, he's going to want to be with her. For a Jew, in this case, he can't be with her. Right? It's forbidden for him to be with her. So that being the case, person got to treat his wife like a person. Right? And not like an object. Now, this definitely doesn't apply to a Noahide. Right? So, it certainly doesn't apply. Right? But at the same time, doesn't necessarily mean, that, even if a person's wife is permitted to him, they should be with her all the time. Right? There should be a limit. So over here, now it doesn't mean you're going to say, what? if a person's wife, gets a period, you can't speak to her. Right now, a person has to be careful here. Right? Obviously, talking about intimate things or whatever that you shouldn't do. Right? For sure, you shouldn't do. Doesn't mean don't speak to her during that time, because how's the wife gonna feel? The wife's gonna feel like she's an object. The only time you're gonna talk to her is when she's permitted. So the Mishna can also mean even when he's permitted to his wife. Right? She doesn't have her period now, so she's totally permitted. Even though it's permissible. Right? Doesn't mean he should be like her. What do the rabbis tell us? They shouldn't be like her like a chicken. Right? All the time. Right? It's certainly not good because it weakens the person. No question about that also. Right? Now, you have to understand where these laws come from. Right? Torah says clear. Right? Certainly for a Jew, a woman sees blood, most likely, you can't be with her. That's it. Right? The Torah prohibition. So we're more, we're more stringent, than Torah prohibition. Regardless, there's good reason. There's good reason to have separation. Because that means you have to talk. That means you have to relate. Right? That means that it can't be just a physical thing. Because if it's just a physical thing, after a while, you lose interest. Right? And what happens when you get older? Not the same. You look for greener pastures, let's say. That's why, most people end up getting divorced. Not the only reason. Right? I originally thought many years ago, so I actually looked this up, that, the number one reason why people get divorced, I would have thought is because of philandering. But that's like number 5 or 6. It's like down the list. I was a little bit shocked. Right? But when I thought about it more, it made more sense. Yeah, that might be a reason, but the fact that, let's say people grow in different directions, there's more incompatibility. You have to deal with the person as a person. When you have to deal with the person as the person, okay, you need the physical also. But if you don't deal with them as a person, it's only the physical is over. Right? It means there's nothing, there's nothing holding up, the relationship. Now again, does this apply to a Noahide? It doesn't apply. Should there be boundaries? 100% there should be boundaries. Right? Obviously, for health reasons, if she's bleeding, you're not going to be together with her. Fine. But when she stops bleeding, right, technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with it. Right? For us, you have to wait. Okay. Whatever it is. But it makes a lot of sense because it actually protects the wife. Because the husband has to care for her in a way. It's not physical. And as we mentioned, if a person's only looking at the physical, then what's going to happen? He's going to lose interest. Right? No matter what you do, over time, it's just not going to get as exciting. You have to do this, do other things, whatever. We'll keep this PG over here. So in this case, maybe you should lose your sound now. So when I speak, nobody hear me. What I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Any case, what's the problem with speaking with a person's wife, whether she could be with him or not? What's the issue? Why can't I speak to her? Why can't? What does the Mishna here say? We're gonna think a little bit, right? It says, do not converse excessively with a woman. Now this means even your wife. This means even if she's permitted, or even if she isn't permitted. So in my language, who the heck cares? As we would say in Boston. Who cares? She's with him. She's not with him. What's the difference? Why can't I? Well, if a person's married, you want to be with somebody. You want to always speak to them. You want to tell them something. Something that happened, something that interested you, whatever. Why can't you speak to her? It's not about just being together. Why is that going to take you down the bad path? That if you do that, you cause evil to yourself. You neglect Torah study. You're going to inherit Ganem. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200. So what's the problem? What is the problem? So the issue is, what are they going to talk about? Right? Let's say a person works, right? A lot of people work, comes home after a hard day. So he's talking to his wife, says, "Oh, honey, what happened today? How was it at work today?" And what happens? Someone says something to him. The boss, made him do this, that, and the other thing that he wasn't happy about. What happens? They're going to end up talking about things. And what's going to lead to? It's going to lead to a quarrel. Right? In other words, they're going to speak Lashon Hara. One thing's going to lead to another. The person's going to get rip-roaring mad, and they feed off of each other. Now, does that mean when he comes home from work and says, oh, what happened at work today? Do you have an obligation to say everything that happened at work? No. Because if there are negative things that happen and you bring that up, what's going to happen? What can a person's wife say? What do you need that job for? Such a terrible thing. This person's this. And it riles you up. Now, let's make it real graphic. Go back to Parshas Korach. What happened to Korach? You have to understand who Korach was. Korach survived Egypt. Korach saw God face to face at Mount Sinai. God saw the miracles of the manna in the desert. Korach held the Aron. Right? He helped carry the ark. Not everyone who was fitting to carry the ark survived. Right? There were people who died. They weren't on the level. Korach was able to carry the ark. And what happened? Korach heard that Moshe Rabbeinu, who did he make the high priest? His brother, Pirkei. Korach's no dummy. Korach was a great individual in his own right. What did Korach say? Me. All five of us. Right? Sybil. He's got a Sybil complex. All five of us. And he's rip-roaring mad. He says, why does Aaron deserve? Why does he deserve the high priesthood? Why don't I deserve? He's jealous, right? We're going to see that the Mishna says jealousy can kill a person, literally. Now, does it come out against Moshe Rabbeinu? No. Moshe Rabbeinu is the king. Everybody understands Moshe Rabbeinu is the king. Had he come out against Moshe Rabbeinu, he would have been killed. Nothing to talk about. So he comes out against Aaron. He says, I want to be the high priest. I want to be the high priest. It's hard to imagine. So what happens? He tells his wife. And his wife gets him all cooked up. He says, yeah, you really deserve it. And who is Moshe Rabbeinu to give it to his brother? And I don't even like his brother. He wears these funny hats and these long things when he's serving. And, she built it up. And what happened? This led to the dispute and the rebellion. The wife of On ben Peles, right? Oh, what a great name, On, right? So On ben Peles, Korach and his group were coming to recruit him. And his wife, got a little bit drunk and he was asleep. And his wife comes out. His wife comes out of the tent. As Korach's men are coming, she uncovers her hair. Now you have to understand, Korach's a religious Jew. Woman uncovers her hair it's not someone you want to mess with or speak to. It's like, where's Owen? Like he's sleeping. Right? He's sleeping and, he's so ultra orthodox. Okay? And he leaves. Like he's not going to have anything to do with him. All right? It's a lie. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham. But she saved her husband. How did she save her husband? Because what was her mentality? Her mentality is, who do you care who's in charge? You're either going to serve Moshe, you're going to help Moshe, or you're going to help Korach. Doesn't matter. You're going to be a lackey. Right? You're going to help them out. It doesn't matter who's in charge. So she saved him. So what does the Talmud say? A wife can either make or break her husband. Right? She can either help him raise himself to high, unbelievable spiritual levels, or she can destroy him. By Korach, she destroyed him. She just egged him on. Right? So you look back and you say, come on, okay, it's happened 2,000 years ago, more. What happened to Korach? This is an everyday occurrence. Wherever a person comes back from learning, person comes back from work or whatever, you have a conversation with your wife, what comes up? What happened during the day? Right? So if you speak, if you say, oh, this person did this or that person did that, obviously you're not allowed to say it if it's Lashon Hara. But then the wife can stir it up. Right? So now, when a person comes home and she says, hey, how was it at work? You don't go into all the details. Because if you go into all the details, then one thing will lead to another, and this is what's going to happen. Right? So now what's going to happen? First of all, you're going to speak Lashon Hara. She'll speak against them. It'll agitate the situation more. And what are they going to do? They're going to be so mad. Oh, this happened and that happened and the other thing happened. What's it going to lead to? What does the Mishnah say here? Right? What does the Mishnah say here? It's going to cause evil to himself. Right? It's going to be Lashon Hara. It's going to come back to bite him. He's going to neglect Torah study. How's he going to neglect Torah study? He's going to neglect Torah study because they're so busy. They're so busy festering on each other and saying how bad this person is and all these terrible things. He's wasted his time when he should have been learning Torah. So it just festers and festers and festers. So we mentioned. Now we're going to get a little bit to laws of modesty here, at least from a Jewish perspective. Right here it says that we're talking about speaking with somebody's wife. Right? With your own wife. Whether he's allowed to be with her, he's not allowed to be with her. All the more so with someone else's wife. Well, the reason is simple. Right? The more a person speaks to someone of the opposite sex, there's a connection. Right? That's why, someone works in a mixed workplace. I know someone, this woman will never let any man call her by her first name. She's Mrs. X. Right? There's a distance. And there should be a distance. Right? This is why, ultra-Orthodox Jews, even if, the brother's married, they don't have so much contact with his wife. Yeah, they'll speak here, there, whatever. Right? But why should there be somewhat minimum contact, minimum interaction? Make sure nothing happens. You're going to say, come on, it's your brother's wife, this, that. It doesn't mean anything. Because what goes on in this world today, stuff happens. There can be a certain connection, between people. You got to be careful. Right? You have to be careful. You have to make boundaries. Right? If you don't make boundaries, it's very, very easy to get sucked in. This is the strongest desire that a person has. Right? So God gave it to us for us to overcome it, not to nullify it, but to harness it and use it properly. So therefore, with someone of the opposite sex, right? I'll date myself. Right? You go back to the movie When Harry Met Sally. Right? You can never be friends with someone of the opposite sex. It gets in the way. Right? They've done studies. They've done tests where, if they had, in schools, they had children separate, they did better. Clear. Why is that so obvious? It's so obvious because when they're together, there's distraction. It's distraction. Right? Because, even at a young age, oh, does he like me? Does he like me? Like, that's what it is. A lot of the time.
Drama.
Yeah, there's always drama. Right? So therefore, the academic studies are not going to be as good because you're caught up in all that. Right? This is all proven. This is not, it's like, oh, this rabbi came and said it. What a novelty. It's not a novelty. Right? This is Aleph Beis. This is very, very, very simple. So now, you look at the next part of the Mishnah, it says, why does it bring evil on a person? Because of the close interaction they have, they're going to be overcome by the evil inclination. Now, the evil inclination finds any way to destroy a person, as brought down in Duties of the Heart, to work a million different ways to try and destroy you. And if a person does not have their guard up, says the Avos was over there. He says if you don't have your guard up, you don't use your intellect to beat it and to stay away from it and to work hard to make boundaries, it will destroy you in this world. It'll destroy you in the next. So why does he bring it upon himself? Because he's lazy. He's going to say, what's the big deal? Right? I'll give an example. Right? One example. I know someone, a child, grew up more modern, right? More modern Orthodox, whatever. And this kid, we're much older now, right? But this kid, as I knew it, he listened to the radio. Okay. You'll say, not the end of the world, whatever. What's the big deal listening to non-Jewish music? Let's say. So if it wasn't for bad language and, forget gangster rap and all that, let's just say it's bad language and bad influence. What it makes you think about, right? Let's just forget videos. I'm just talking about the music, right? Boom, 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 right? Forget about it, right? What does it put in your mindset? So what did this kid listen to? So when he was growing up, right, as a teenager, he was listening to Howard Stern. Now, Howard Stern, I wouldn't say is the greatest thing since sliced cheese, and certainly very modest and all that, right? Whatever you want to say about him, one thing leads to another, right? You can say, well, you could listen to any other type of thing. You're right, because of the reality things, other things, whatever the case is, doesn't matter. That's where it started. For other people can start with sports and other, you let something in, the evil inclination just says, yeah, more of it. It's enjoyable. Let's look at this. Let's hear that. Let's hear something else. It's destructive. So therefore, when a person puts his guard down, so no, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? That you'll say, okay, you didn't have to listen to Howard Stern. True. Could have listened to any number of things. Okay, so he's a little bit worse than everybody else. Fine. But you got to listen to other things. You get into that type of stuff, it just spirals. That's what it does. So we mentioned over here, because of the laxity, you don't have anyone to blame but yourself, because you brought it upon yourself. Now, what's this going to do? It's going to cause them to be idle. It's going to cause them to waste time. What should you have been doing? Should have been learning Torah. Yeah, but I'm too tired. I already learned Torah today. So I want to relax. I want to listen to music. I want to listen to this. I want to watch this or whatever it is. Because what it's going to do is going to weaken his desire to learn. You're gonna say, why should that be? Because other stuff's a lot more exciting. You sit in class, you listen, to the Rebbe speak. It's okay. Here comes an ox, scores another ox, right? Who had the right of way? Who's liable? Who's not liable? This is that. Doesn't you have to make it speak to a person. If you don't make it speak to a person, they don't get the enjoyment, and it's hard. It's something that's hard. The first translation in English, for the Talmud was Sonsino. Now, the Sonsino translation was so bad, they said the Aramaic was actually easier. So then Art Scroll came along and made it much more user-friendly. Much, much more user-friendly. But the problem is that it's still hard. You got to think. Okay, there's a disagreement. Commentaries disagree. What are they disagreeing about? What does it say? What are the ramifications? You got to think. But you have to make it real. For a kid, you have to make it real. How it relates to them. And even when you do that, it's hard. Right? Because the thing itself is hard. So therefore, if you put these other stumbling blocks in front of you, what does it do? It makes learning Torah that much harder. Because someone told me that if he's learning with somebody, he can tell if the person watched a movie or not. So I asked him, I said, how do you know? I said, how can you tell? He said, because they have no attention span. Their attention span is gone. Right? So when he sees that, someone he's learning with is spacing out. So he asked him point blank, did you see something? Did you didn't sleep? Did this or that? Because it's much more enjoyable. Right? It's definitely because you just sit there like a couch potato. Remember when they came out with the couch potatoes? It could sit right next to you. Right? You feed it some popcorn, it's great, Have a great time. You're not alone watching it yourself. Right? But what would you rather do? Sit there and veg out and watch Rambo? Tremendously fun, right? No question. Yeah. But or sit down and try and break your head and see what the Talmud says. It's hard. Right? The impurity sticks to you like glue. Right? It's very hard to get rid of. So when that happens and you want to get inspired, say, I really want to learn Torah, but this other stuff is so much more exciting. Once you let it in, it kills you. So how is it going to lead a person to Gehenna? Right? The last part of the Mishnah. Because the person is overcome by desire. What happens when you're overcome by desire? You overcome by desire, you lose your all sense of reality. Right? When a person gets angry, what does the Talmud say? Even if Gehenna, even if hell was open in front of you, and you heard all the screaming and whatever, all these souls suffering, person gets angry, loses himself. When you lose yourself, Talmud says, even if Gehenna is open in front of you, you're not going to change because you're so rip-roaring mad. Right? You just lose all sense of reality. So when a person, I remember, when I was in university, by the Jewish Theological Seminary, so the conservative place there. I remember a friend of mine was trying to keep kosher, and he's like, I have a treif urge. I have this non-kosher urge. He's like, I have to get a pepperoni pizza. I was like, you don't have to. It's just like it burned inside him so much, and the evil inclination slaughtered him. He's like, he tried to keep kosher. He never kept kosher in his life, right? He tried to do it, and he's just like, I have this urge. It's like, no, 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 don't do it. Whatever. So when a person has that urge, and a person, you lose sense of reality. You got to die if you don't have a piece of pizza. Like, come on. And not only that, you could do even worse things.
Temporary insanity.
Which ultimately, get you severely punished. Now, the $1 million question. The $1 million question, what does that have to do with what we said before? What does that have to do with helping poor people? Right? We're talking about helping poor people. Now you're saying don't talk to women, right? Frying pan, bam, right? What do you mean? What's the connection? So with the mitzvah of giving charity, right, a person receives unbelievable amount of blessings. Right? Is he allowed, though? Is the person allowed, a man, is he allowed to help a poor woman? You're going to say, like, what's the big deal? Like, what? He's going to lose himself or whatever? He's allowed to, but he shouldn't converse too much with her. That's the halacha. Why not? Obvious reasons. Right now, people would say, and I went to
misunderstandings.
Close friends of our husband died, and she is, I think, in her late 70s probably. Anyway, we're sitting there, when someone dies by Sephardic people, they have it's like a whole party. They like eat up a storm. By Ashkenazim, you sit there, you talk about the person, whatever, you don't eat, right? There's a very big difference in what the mourning looks like. By them, they're like stuffing their faces, and by us, we don't eat. So in any case, we're very close, with this woman over the years. We known the family for many years, and I happened to be sitting next to her for whatever reason, and she puts her hand down, she puts her elbow down, and my hand was there, or my arm was there, whatever. So I quickly moved it. Now, she's a little bit more, let's just say a little bit more modern, and she looks at me, and she's like, I could be your mother. I could be your grandmother. I'm like, well, you're not that old. I don't think you could be my grandmother. I said, well, if you do the math, but okay. Right? She's like, what is the big, like, what do you think is going to happen? Right? So whatever. We made a whole big joke about it. But in the end, a decree is a decree. Right? It doesn't matter, if someone's all wrinkled up. It looks like a prune. It's irrelevant. It's a decree. Right? You're not even allowed to touch your wife, at that time of the month. You can't touch somebody else. There was a story once, a rabbi in England, and he got something from the queen. The question is, he's allowed to shake her hand. Right? So he held, while she's wearing gloves. Right? The queen, obviously, wearing gloves. So we'd be allowed to just give her a fish handshake. You know what a fish handshake is? Just a very weak handshake. Is he allowed to do it, by touching the gloves? Right? So I think he held it was. I think my rabbi said, it doesn't matter. Gloves, no gloves, whatever. But at the end of the day, even if it's a fish handshake, right? So if a person's, in the workplace, you try not to embarrass someone. Someone gave me the idea, be like a Japanese person. You bow. You put your hands behind your back, right? And you bow. I mean, not fully, obviously, but you say it's a pleasure to meet you, whatever, and you have your hands behind your back, right? Not, try not to embarrass someone. Or you say, listen, I only shake hands with ugly women, something like, to break the ice. But to tell it even further, right? I've gone almost a little bit over here, right? I tell you the following story, the amazing story. Famous wife of Rebbe Meir, Brurier, tells the story. Rabbi Yossi Aglili asked Brurier, which direction is it to Lud? Right? Lud right now is near Tel Aviv, right near the airport, so it was exactly the same location it was before. Whatever the case is, this Rabbi Yossi Aglili asks her, which direction is it to Lud? So what does she do? She rebukes him. And she says, you should have shortened what you said. You should have said how to lud. Not how do you get to lud. You used one extra word. He would have understood, she would have understood if he would have said how to lud. Would have meant how to get there. You want to say, okay, his grammar's bad, you shouldn't speak like that, whatever. She hit him over the head, right? Frying pan. Hit him over the head and said, what are you doing using an extra word speaking to a woman? Right? So that idea of saying one extra word that you didn't need comes underneath this teaching. Why?
Excessive, yeah.
Why? Because it says excessive, right? But one extra word, when you're talking about people of the opposite sex, you don't use so many words. You don't have that kind of camaraderie, right? Again, reverse to when Harry met Sally. You don't want it to go anywhere because for whatever reason, you don't want it to start, in any way, shape, or form. You have to have boundaries. You might say, come on, that doesn't happen. Whatever. It's not true. It's totally not true, because that is the greatest desire God gave. And a person going through a difficult time is having difficulty and whatever, and all these different things, someone gives them a nice smile or this or that. It's something you do not want to start with. And the evil inclination can absolutely destroy you. So when a person does it, you say, come on, what do the rabbis know over here? Why put such boundaries? Right? People ask me that, like, why can't they even look at you when they say hello? Because they don't want to look at your face. It has nothing to do with you beautiful, you're not beautiful. They don't want the temptation.
Right.
They don't want to think about certain things. A person who may think immoral thoughts in their head, it might not even be great immoral thoughts, but if they have immoral thoughts, even if they don't act on it, they get punished for it. A Jew. Doesn't apply to a non-Jew. Even if you don't act on it, the few things that if a person thinks about and they don't act on it, they get punished for it as if they did it, which is pretty severe. One of them is immorality, one of them is idolatry. If a person thought in their mind that JC, or a short little fat guy, right, Mr. Fatso Buddha himself, and a person in their mind says, that is my God, right? Fatso is my God. Torah prohibition. Not allowed to. Why? Because even though we normally say words in our heart don't mean anything, when it comes to immorality, when it comes to idolatry, two very severe things, even if I don't act on it, I could be severely punished for it. Right? So it comes along this story with Bruria, right? And the commentaries learn, look, he said one extra word. One extra word. That's conversing excessively with a woman. Someone's like, come on, is there really a domino effect? Is that really going to be? He's going to say an extra word. It's really going to matter? Because anyone who converses excessively with a woman, it spirals. It spirals. And when it spirals, you are, in my language, toast. That's what it can do. So you nip it in the bud. They ever say that in Canada? You nip it in the bud and you don't start.
Barney Fife, I think we got it.
Yeah. Barney Fife. Anyway, we digress. But that is exactly the point, right? Because if it's something that powerful, and we all know how powerful the desire is, you do not let it in. You don't start. Because once you start, you can't stop it. And that's what it's going to do. It'll kill you in this world. It'll kill you in the next world. Right? So there have to be boundaries. Megan might say, well, it's a little bit excessive. It's a little bit this. You can say what you want. The rabbis understood. They understood the nature of man. And by understanding the nature of man, they weren't fools. They understand the desire. Right? They understand the strong desire. Because so why did God give such a strong desire? He wanted you to enjoy it. But you have to know how. You have to know how to tap in. You have to know how to harness it. Right? And that's the whole thing. And that's what marriage is. Right? That you have to treat your wife like a person. I once spoke I once spoke at there are 7 festive meals. A person gets married, right, for the first time. So they have these meals after the wedding, right, for 7 days. So someone asked me to speak, and and it was whatever. It was a whatever. It was a Hasidic crowd that was there. So whenever someone I was close to said, I want you to come and I want you to speak and whatever. So I got up to speak, and people thought I gave over the greatest novelty in the world. Could be they were just humoring me, probably. But what I tell them? I told them that if you have a flower, right, you have a plant. You have a plant. What happens when you don't water it? Even if you put it in the sunlight, it dies,
It dries
right?
right out. Yeah.
It dies right out. You have to water it, right? Even a person been married 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, right? You still have to put the effort in, right? You can't rely on what you did 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 5 months ago or whatever, right? You have to work it. It's a work in progress, right? We just sort of get lulled into sleep because, we're married so long and this and that. But people can forget the basics and can take things for granted, right? And if a person doesn't feel appreciated or they're taken for granted, it can be a disaster. It can be an absolute disaster, right? So these laws are there for good reason, and a person has to know how to speak. A person has to know when to speak, what to speak. Because we saw what happened by Korah, right? This is going to be my 35-second recapitulation, right? So you have to know, you have to know how, what to say because you can get all cooked up. And when you get all cooked up, it's also not good. Now, does that mean you never speak, you never say anything? No. It definitely doesn't mean that. What it means is you have to know what to give over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This
If
is
you know
key.
it's going to agitate your wife, and then she's going to agitate you, whatever, don't say it,
Right.
or just say it in a certain way and just move on, right? Because if not, then it just it puts stoke in the fire. You
Stirs
fuel
the
the
pot.
fire even more, and then it's a domino effect. Because then you get so cooked up in it, and this is what happened with Korach, right? You get so cooked up in all these things. They say, "Oh, I was going to go learn, but you just spoke for an hour and a half, just like venting, and you just wasted time when you could have been learning." Now again, you have to spend time with your wife. Even a person, learns, day and night. You still have to, speak and spend time and whatever, right? But you have to be smart also. You have to know what to speak about. Yeah, whatever. And what it's going to do. And what it's going to do if you don't do that, or you let your guard down and you are lax. That's what the end of the Mishnah says. You're going to cause evil to yourself, lashon hara, all these other things. You're certainly never going to learn Torah, right? Or you'll neglect it. And then what's going to happen? You should have been learning. You didn't. Spoke lashon hara, did all these other things. You're going to end up being a little bit hot. Will be nice. You're going to end up, inheriting Gehenna. But you might tell me, if a person transgresses, aren't they going to go there anyway to get fixed up? Yeah, but you don't have to add to it. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to go there anyway, so I'll just add some extra baggage. Hey, why is it getting hot in here? You don't want to add on more than you have to. And you'd
Right.
rather suffer in this world than have to go through that, even though we don't want to do that. But this is a very, very slippery slope that a person very easily could have their guard down and, and get absolutely demolished. And it's happened. I'm not even going to say that. Oh, it's just like 1 in a million. It's definitely not 1 in a million. It. I don't know exactly what the statistics are. I don't think I want to know, right? But whatever it is, it's not as uncommon, as we would think, because again, people are in all kinds of different situations, especially in the workplace. You know, so you come in contact with secular Jews, with non-Jews, right? Even with religious Jews, right? You have to have boundaries, and if that's the work environment that you're in, you have to make these boundaries, because if you don't, you're bound to fail. You gotta be very strong, otherwise, my language is game over. So that was good. I was about a minute and a half. So I said
Uh,
35 seconds. Sorry, that
Rabbi,
was
Rabbi, that's some beautiful material, and I appreciate the way you say it. But if I might, in my studies of this chapter 1, Mishna 5 in the past, does it also not even begin to elaborate and unfurl, say, about our relationship with our spouse, about our domains and our roles a little bit? The way the rabbi had taught myself when I had originally heard this, he went on about a woman's domain in the home, in the way a husband should never really cross certain boundary lines, like you're mentioning boundaries, usurping that role, and it causes rifts, and if that's all out of whack, it causes a breakdown in the
Right,
relationship
but
as
the
well.
roles are a little bit different today because if women work helping support their husband, the husband has to help out and do other things. So they're intertwined. Definitely, definitely certain things. Someone told me whatever a few months ago. Someone's first married, and he told me one Friday night. He said I made the biggest mistake, the most simplest mistake. I said, what was that? He said, my wife asked me what I thought about this dress, and I made a face, and I and I said, "Oh,"
Oh no.
I said that. I said, "Well," I said, "Hopefully you shouldn't do it in the future." But you're allowed to lie for that, even if you don't like it. For the sake of
They'll
you
ask
know,
those loaded questions. Yeah, how do I
right,
look
right.
in this?
For
And
the for
you're
the
no-win scenario questions.
right for the sake of marital peace, within reason, you are allowed to lie. Right, even if you don't like it, you can say it looks beautiful. Right? That's what the Talmud says. Interesting thing. The Talmud says that what do we say by a wedding? You say kala nala vicha suda. Right? A bride is beautiful. Right? She's beautiful. She's nice. Whatever. What if she really isn't so beautiful? Isn't that a lie? Right? Maybe she's like overweight and then she like her chin droops or I don't know. Whatever it is. Right? So why are we allowed to say that? Right? Even let's say the bride isn't. So we could say that every bride on our wedding day, definitely, certainly to our husband, is going to be beautiful, no question, right? But any bride, I guess within reason, but usually any bride you see, it's like an extra charm there, all dressed up and all these other things. It's a tremendous thing. So the reality is, the reality is, it's not a lie, right? It's only the husband thinks she's beautiful, right? And he's going to be with her. So it's maybe not necessarily 100% in your eyes, certainly in his eyes. That's definitely true. So and that's what you're one of the songs you sing is praising the bride, but there is that question: what if she's 350 pounds or whatever, and she like looks like a linebacker? Okay, like there's beauty and there's beauty, right? But we don't necessarily look at physical beauty, even though a person does have to be attracted, to his spouse, but a person has to see the inner beauty. That's one of the things that Abraham says about his wife when she's taken. He says, "I didn't know how beautiful you were." We didn't know how beautiful. She's the most, Talmud says the most beautiful woman outside of Eve. She's like the most pretty woman. Like, how'd you not notice? Right? So it doesn't
Yeah,
mean
there's
he
much more
noticed.
behind the scenes.
Right, but he saw the inner beauty because when a person gets married, there's no physical contact before they get married. So the love comes afterwards. Right? But that love is much more stronger bond because of the direction that you're both gonna go. Right? So the physical will come, but it's really what's inside, and what the goals are and what the values are, right?
Yeah.
Everything else is just extra.
And being united, I find yeah, since you and I have been chatting, my wife's totally changed in a good way, but yet she's still her beautiful self with her own ups and downs. And today's lesson for me has always been something that I need to always integrate or be conscious of. I'm one of these guys that have probably been more than most, straight out off the mind, and like you said at the beginning when you and I were chatting, foot right in mouth disease. It seems,
Right. But a
I've
lot of
always
times,
spoke
a lot,
without thought. Yeah,
right? A lot of times, someone will say something, especially a spouse, and what's the first thing you do is react. right? But that's like the last thing you should do because you'll say something that you regret, right? So you gotta, if something's said, it sort of hits a raw nerve. You gotta suck it in and then figure out how you're gonna process it before you blow your stack. Because otherwise, if you have a knee jerk reaction, that knee jerk reaction gonna hurt everybody, especially you. So you definitely have to, you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, Rabbi. Before we shut it down, I mean, I did have somebody online, and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but somebody was brought up a point, and I was typing a little bit there about with a question of the potential for the oral and written Torah disappearing, and I said I don't think it can happen. It will remain. Um, um, I'm pretty certain that Torah abides, no matter what. But the person's comment, if it disappeared, could it not be recovered? And I didn't know how to respond to that question, so I was kind of typing a little bit while you were talking.
Uh,
No possibility of that happening, right? No.
no, it's the only reason it was written down is because you're talking about total upheaval when the temple's destroyed. So they thought, the rabbis felt that these chains of that they're going to pass it down orally going to get lost, right? So really, it's not supposed to be written down. It's supposed to be, transmitted orally. But but we see over the millennium, that is the only thing that's kept the Jewish people together, right? I try to explain to somebody that I grew up with as a kid, with his wife and her kids and whatever, and he's got kids that are intermarried, and he says every time around the holidays can't stand going into their house. And I see this tree and whatever, and like they're very Jewish. Like this woman, she keeps kosher, and she stood out my parents' synagogue, and her whatever. All kids are messed up in different ways for intermarriage and other things. Even though like she kept kosher to a certain extent and kept Shabbos or whatever. But I tried to explain. I said, yeah, you are very Jewish because you're still a link in a chain to the previous generation. Your parents gave you that positive feeling about Judaism. Maybe not to be an Orthodox Jew, but they gave you that feel, that strong feeling. So I said, what did you give your kids? He said, I also gave them a strong feeling about Judaism. I said, but why didn't it get passed down? Why didn't the strong feeling get passed down? He says, you have an answer? I said, yeah, I have an answer. He said, what's the answer? I said, because you didn't give him Torah. You didn't give him a tradition. You just said, well, you didn't give him anything. You gave him a half-baked Jewish education, and that's it. So what do kids learn, when they're very young? They start learning Chumash, 5 books of Moses. They learn Tanakh. They upgrade. From Tanakh, they go to Mishna. From Mishna, they go to
Right.
Gemara. Right? And they spend, the vast majority of their lives learning Talmud. That's the way it's never going to be forgotten because you still have people studying these old crusty books, so to speak. Right.
But
And they're going through it and they keep going through it and they keep learning it and they pass it down to their kids. And it's important to learn and all that. It can't be just based on a feeling. So that's never going to go by the wayside. Right. That's always going to be there. Now, look at all the Jews out there. There are 13 million Jews never heard of what the Talmud is, never heard of what Shabbos is, right? So if they never had the knowledge, if they never had the opportunity to learn what happens in all those synagogues, they die. 60, 70, 80% intermarriage, they die. They don't learn. So Hitler, Yamach Shemoy, may his name be blotted out and should he rot, right? He destroyed people physically. We're destroying ourselves spiritually. They don't know Shema Yisrael. They don't know anything. So the Talmud itself is never going to go by the wayside. That's the only thing that's kept the Jewish people intact. The laws,
Amen.
Kashrus, Shabbos, Hanukkah, all these things. It's based there. What again, is that a guarantee it's going to keep someone on the straight and narrow path and they're not going to go sour? It's not a guarantee, right? But it's the strongest thing that we have. I had a relative once tell me that, a little bit upset the way the path I took and whatever. So I sent them an email and I said, okay, no offense taken. I said, just show me a better system. Show me a better system that works, that you can pass this down to the next generation and it works. Doesn't exist. And the only reason it exists is because of Talmudic scholarship that's passed down and the learning that's passed down and the observance of what that means.
Yes.
If
And I
that
think
disappears, the Jewish people disappear.
heaven forbid that should ever happen.
But right,
I can't. And I think that this whole series, Ethics of the Fathers, has a court to do that. And did not we start off that there are three things that the world is founded upon, in its Torah and service of Hashem and
but it's the
deeds
very
of
first
kindness.
thing. God
Yes.
gave it over to Moshe, Moshe to Joshua, Joshua to the elders, to the men of the great assembly. Gave them everything. You didn't give him a nice feeling. Come on, eat chicken soup. Have a matzo ball. Gefilte fish. That's great. Come on. You know, they're going to say, Mo, we're going to take this matzo ball and ram it down your throat. Like, we've had enough. That's not going to keep anybody Jewish. It's very nice. And you can be very Jewish at heart, right? What we call the cardiac Jew. But that guarantees you that your children will never have anything to do with Judaism. Just about. Because you're not giving them any substance. You're just giving them a nice feeling what it means to be a Jew. But you're not even getting the meaning of it because you have no clue what it means.
Right.
So if you don't have all that together, right? You don't have all the law together and what's keeping the Jewish people together. It's over. I don't care what your philosophy is. Kaufman's law is if you can't pass it down, it doesn't mean anything. It's totally irrelevant. You're gonna say, what about in your community? You're losing people. You're right. Maybe one person in the family goes sour. But in the secular community, you're losing 40,000, probably higher. 40,000 Jews a year to assimilation. And you know why you're losing them to assimilation? Because they don't know diddly squat. They don't know anything. They're just throwing away their heritage because they're throwing it away. They don't know what the richness that they have. And they flush it down the toilet. That's what they do. Because they don't see it has any meaning. They don't see it has any relevance. Right? So I told this person, right? A few years back, I said, listen, either you look like me or you disappear. And that's it. I said, you can argue what you want. So when I told this person you can't pass down a feeling, he looked at me and was like, yeah, I guess you're right. You can't pass down a feeling. He goes, all right, pass the pizza. That was it. He admitted it. He's never going to change, probably never going to change. Right? And this is the reality they has to live with. So I'm like, yeah, you're there under protest. You know, I have to go to my kids. I said, who says? Like one quick story. I was someone I went to yeshiva with came. I was coming back from the States on the plane, and we were talking. I said, oh, where were you? So I said, oh, I was by a wedding. I said, oh, mazel tov. He's like, nah, wasn't such a mazel tov because my sister got married and she intermarried. Right? She married a non-Jew. So I said, you went to the wedding? He said, yeah. He said, I went to the wedding, but he's the only Orthodox Jew in the family, right? Go figure, happens, right? So he told me, he said, I was there under protest. I said, okay. I said, you're listening to the music, eating your kosher food under protest. Well, how are you there under protest? He said, they knew I wasn't happy. I said, but you were there. How could you have been there? Right? So that's it. We limit our we lower our standards, right? And we think, okay, like we don't want to ostracize anybody, God forbid. Why are people so afraid to tell the truth? Just say, I can't go. It's forbidden. Intermarriage is forbidden. Not allowed to go. You haven't going to bring up family. It's going to hit them straight in the eyes. They're not going to like. Am I allowed? If a non-Jewish friend of mine invites me to something in the church as a Jew, am I allowed to go? I can't go. I'm not allowed to go. I can say congratulations. I can say all kinds of things. I'm not allowed to go. No offense. For us, it's idolatry. Okay, you can bring up other things. Is the Torah true or it's not? If it's a game of make-believe and it's just a game of telephone and all that, you're right, then it really doesn't matter. But if it's really true, if it's 100% true, there are laws. You got to live by the laws. It's not by a feeling. I have a lot of feelings in my heart. You think God cares? He doesn't care. He wants you to do something. He wants you to act. He wants you to do the right thing. I'm there under protest. What the, you're there under
Hashem wouldn't have
protest.
said it if he didn't want it.
Idiot! You're there under protest, stuffing your face and getting plastered. Very good. On that note,
On that note, well, Rabbi, I think you touched on a lot today about the boundaries, brought some clarification and a lot of wonderful ethics about working with the poor, having our homes open, and more than that, how to deal in relationships and when to keep our mouths shut. I could always learn from, but it's an honor to hear
I'm
you
with you
speak.
on that one.
Rabbi, it's an honor to hear you speak, and it's a joy. And I want to thank everybody for attending. Even though we had a little bit of a break, I'm trying to get to the technical side of it. And Rabbi Kaufman's convinced that not much technology is Kaufman proof, and he's proven me right so far. But I'll get to the bottom of it and make sure we have perfect streams. But I am in the middle of a bit of snowstorm right now here in the Canadian Rockies. So, but Rabbi Heimer, are we okay for next week? Is your schedule still open, or?
Yep, next week sounds good. Should be could be 2 weeks. I have a wedding the same night, so it could be we'll just do it a different day. But I think next week we're still good. So as long as you figure out how to be coffin proof, we'll be good.
Well, Hashem willing, folks, till next week, then we'll continue with Pirkei Avos. Remember, you can always find Rabbi Kaufman on his website, orthodoxconversion.com, or you can check him out on his YouTube page. He's got several classes going weekly, and I want to encourage you to reach out and support him in all that he's doing, because he's got some great stuff coming out, and we so appreciate him and the Torah that he shares from the Orthodox position. It's life to us that are seeking, and it's light to the world. And we thank you, Rabbi Kaufman. So until next week, folks, have a wonderful, wonderful week.